I call the meeting of the Advisory Committee on Capital Area Security to order. Today is Friday, November 21st, 2025, and we have a quorum present. It's good to see everyone today. Welcome. Thank you to the members, advisors, and the public who are also in attendance. To start, I'd like to go through a few housekeeping items. First, I will walk through the expectations for decorum for our committee that our committee has. Everyone here today must be seated when they are in the hearing room. There will be no standing or sitting in the walkways or aisles. If you need further accommodation, please communicate with the sergeant's staff. Please leave all signs outside. Signs are not permitted in the hearing room or at the testifier's table. Clapping and other disruptions are not allowed. Thank you to our sergeant's office staff who are present for helping maintain decorum in the meeting hearing. Our next housekeeping item is the minutes. Senator Westland, will you move the minutes from October 27, 2025?
So moved.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Westland moves the minutes from October 27, 2025. Any discussion? Please note that we have 2 members participating remotely today, and their vote will be recorded accordingly. We will now proceed to a roll call vote. Ella, please take the roll.
Chair Flanagan.
Aye.
Chief Justice Hudson.
Aye.
Representative Moeller.
Aye.
Senator Westland.
Aye.
Representative Nash.
Present.
Senator Limmer. 5 ayes, 0 nays.
I actually want to clarify that. Representative Nash, you said present and not aye.
Nash changes present to aye.
Thank you very much. With 5 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails and the minutes are adopted. Representative Nash, you're sort of the voice of God here in this room since we can't see your face. Yeah, I don't want to encourage you, but yeah. So with great power comes great responsibility, Representative.
I'm a little, connectivity is a little bit difficult. I'm returning from deer camp.
Well, I hope you did well, or at least had some good snacks in the process. So thank you so much. Over the past few months, we have had experts from the National Committee on State Legislators give us overviews of other states' approaches to Capitol security. We also had the Axtel Group provide an update on their security assessment. We built our knowledge as a committee on these topics and had discussions about how we want to approach Capitol security at our own state capitol and provide well-informed advice to the legislature and to the governor to consider. I'm grateful, as always, for the work that has been put into these discussions, from our members asking important questions, the outside experts sharing vital information, and to the advisors who offer expertise on our own Capitol complex. In the coming meetings, we will be focused on bringing forward and discussing recommendations that will be part of our final ACAS report. As we walk through some of these recommendations today, I want to remind people that ACAS is an advisory committee, and we do not have the power to appropriate funds or make direct changes to public safety laws or protocol. Also for awareness, we will not be voting on the final ACAS report today. We are reviewing specific provisions to determine whether they should move forward for inclusion in the final report. However, the recommendations we will be making have the opportunity to be a guiding document for the legislature and the governor as they determine how to make our state capitol as safe and secure as possible for all stakeholders. So with that, we will move on to our second agenda item. Our next item of business is the consideration of 2 proposed language provisions. The first provision before the committee is a proposed committee decorum language. Members should have the text in front of them. This proposal was drafted by DPS and reviewed by the House and Senate Sergeant at Arms. In addition to the draft language, we have also suggested committee security procedure and protocol in your binders, which was drafted earlier this year in a joint effort from DPS and the House Sergeant at Arms based on their recommendations for best practices. Committee advisors, can you speak to the provision and how it may impact your work and the work of the organization? Where are we starting with? Okay. So we'll start with the Sergeant at Arms.
I'd have no additions or corrections at this point.
Could you just walk us through the proposals?
For the committee decorum piece? Well, as it's presented, the Advisory Committee on Capital Area Security recommends that the House and Senate adopt joint rules at the beginning of each biennium that specify the conduct of members and public and committee hearings. The committee recommends these rules state the type of conduct that is expected and the type of conduct that is not allowed. For example, disruptive behavior, video cameras, or signs. In addition, these committee decorum rules should specify how the rules will be enforced, give the committee chair the power to clear the committee room in case of disturbance, and seek the assistance of the Sergeant at Arms in Capitol Security. The committee also recommends that in all cases of potential criminal activity on the Capitol grounds, the Minnesota State Capitol Security Division be the designated investigatory authority.
Thank you very much for walking us through that. And these recommendations that have been made by advisors, I know that today we're going to have some additional discussion. I anticipate that there may be some concerns around specific language that will be delivered to each body, but broadly, just want to be clear that our advisors, both through DPS and the Sergeant at Arms of both the House and Senate, are aligned in making sure that there are set expectations for committee decorum. And so these are both in front of you, and wanted to just open it up to have a conversation about decorum. Senator Westland, I will call on you first.
Thank you. And this, thank you so much for bringing this forward. I think that the concept that we are trying to get to here is the idea that there should be a floor of expectations, and each committee chair still has the authority to have their own rules over and above that. There are some chairs who do and don't permit, for example, drinking beverages in their committees, but this is really to set expectations of what's going to happen in each committee. I think our recommendation is that there would be a uniform script that is read at the beginning of every committee. My recommendation, and I guess my comfort level is, my understanding is that getting joint rules passed can be very difficult, and I think the recommendation would probably be better served by recommending that each body adopt rules at the beginning of their biennium regarding conduct. And again, I think that my understanding is that sergeants have difficulty enforcing rules that aren't actually written down, that they can reference. And this would provide clear direction for committee chairs, for members of the committee, and for the public and the media in terms of sort of the expectations of how the committee is going to conduct itself. And then the suggested committee security procedures and protocol, I was referred to the Minnesota Senate Policies for Senators and Staff, which is sort of a supplement to our temporary rules. But this actually does have a section that addresses conduct in Senate committees. But I will note that there are certainly things that we are recommending that are not in our policies that we would probably want to take a look at. I do like the idea that it is identifying the roles, various roles for individuals, including the sergeant staff and the chairs. And there just may be some additional discussion needed about what would be included in sort of our final sort of suggested policies and procedures. But I do think that this will provide necessary clarity so that our committees can function better, so that everybody has clear expectations that are enforceable. And so that chairs also know what they have the authority to do and not do. Certainly when there are disruptions, as have been referenced on this committee, the process would be the chair would stop the committee, clear the room, and then resume the committee. So that's one of the things we're recommending. But in any event, I do think that this is something that can be very helpful to ensure that we have not only decorum, but that our committee processes are safe, that everybody feels that they are secure and able to express themselves, that our witnesses are able to testify in an environment that feels safe and secure for them. And so those are my only comments. Again, there may be some tweaks that we might want to make, but my suggestion is not to recommend joint rules because I think that that's just probably going to be unworkable.
I appreciate that, Senator. Representative, do you have anything? Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I agree, I do think joint rules would be maybe more difficult to accomplish and that we could have the same recommendations as far as what those rules might look like, and then the House and the Senate can act accordingly. The one piece that I did mention that Senator Westland referenced that we were talking about beforehand was I would really like to see something in here about member conduct, specifically that members are expected to follow the directions or guidance of Capitol Security and the Sergeant at Arms. I do know that that is something I've heard in the past, and that it would be helpful to just make sure that we're saying that as well. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Westland, did you reference that there is language to member decorum in the Senate guidelines?
It does reference member decorum. It probably could be, well, a senator should not use insulting or personally or socially offensive language when addressing members of the public. A senator should not speak impertinently, although I imagine impertinence is in the eye of the beholder. Attack the motives of any senator, et cetera. Use indecent language or other disorderly words. And so on. And so there certainly is some guidance about member decorum. But I do think that the issue Representative Moeller is getting to is that if a committee hearing is becoming disruptive and unruly, and our sergeants are saying we should shut it down, clear the room, and so on, that members need to follow the guidance and direction of our security personnel.
Thank you. Chief Justice, I know that you had something you'd like to add. I know that you have made some changes to your protocols.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Not directly related, obviously, to the decorum rules that are being considered here for the House and the Senate, but I did want the body to know that the branch has recently been involved in a several-month-long, or maybe longer, effort to revise our own internal decorum policies for operation of both our courtrooms at the Judicial Center as well as our Capitol courtroom here in the Capitol. And we've spent, but of course, we're considering some of the very same issues that you're considering in terms of what is acceptable behavior in our courtrooms and how we handle disruptive behavior in the courtrooms. And so we've spent some time looking at that, and we've had these rules for many, many years, but it was time to update them as it is for all of us. And so I simply just I'll have Jen maybe speak to it a little more specifically in terms of what we've done, but I just simply offer it to this body as if you want to look another place to look at language and look at some of the things that we've done and that we're prohibiting and how we're handling it in terms of activities in the courtroom specifically. But again, I think some of that language could be applied more broadly. So I don't know, Jen, if you would maybe talk just a little more specifically about that, if she may. Absolutely. Madam Chair, thank you.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I would say probably one of the differences that you would find in our rules is we have a layered approach. We have rules of decorum for the building, and then they get more narrow for the courtrooms. And so not only do we talk about the behavior within the courtroom, but behavior outside the courtroom that may be impacting what's happening in the hearing or in the proceedings. So that's probably one of the largest maybe differences of what you're looking at here. And I honestly have to say I don't know what you have in place for decorum within the Capitol building itself and how that might impact your conference hearings. Thank you.
Could you actually speak to, what some of the expectations are when members of the public come into the building before they're in the courtroom? There's certainly different levels of power that you may have in the courtroom versus outside, but could you speak to that a little bit? And how do people know that those are the expectations?
So first off, our public is greeted by digital signage when they come into the building before they even go through screening that touches on the rules of decorum for the building. And so they see that first and foremost when they enter. So we're setting the stage immediately there. And then the point of entry screening, I think, kind of reiterates and supports those rules of decorum, especially when it comes to contraband or items that we've identified not to have in the building. And so those are kind of two of the initial steps that we take right away. And then our rules for the courtroom are actually posted outside of the courtroom before they enter the room there as well. One, for example, is they can have signs in the building. They can't bring them into the courtroom.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Representative Nash, I know you wanted to weigh in here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I would point out that the rules for the House and the Senate respectively have multiple layers of governance, from joint rules, House rules, which of course are the more important of the two, as we all know. Sorry. We also have Masons, and a lot of these things are governed already for members of the legislature. And I would point out that I don't know that we need to be overly duplicative. I certainly think that there's a case to be made for what are the expectations for members of the public, but I would encourage this commission to meet with the chief clerks, and I know often the House chief clerk is there already. House chief clerk has forgotten more about rules, Masons, decorum, and other things than I think anybody's ever going to know. So I would ask for a pause on the particular aspect of how do members engage, because it's already covered in a huge number of documents. So I think that there is conversation that's merited to issue what are the playing rules for public, but I think that the House and Senate are already well covered by the documents that we have.
I appreciate that. Pat Murphy, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that you're always a resource here. So just want to lift that up. I have just found if you need to know anything about the Capitol, Pat Murphy is the guy to talk to. I think there may then just be more of a question. I appreciate that so much, Representative Nash, that there are many things in place. I think, potentially then it is the actual implementation of those rules and guidelines. And I think it would be helpful to even hear from either the State Patrol or potentially from the sergeants, just from this committee, that guidance. Is it just sort of generally encouragement to make sure that these things are in place, and what it looks like to make sure that you can do your jobs in keeping both, I guess, all of the stakeholders here safe. And so if you need to step into a hearing room, what do you need? If there are things that are particularly tense where you need to bring the temperature down. I think we all just want to be good partners in that and make sure that what we are bringing forward is helpful and appropriate. So I would literally just open it up for conversation or discussion as to what would be most helpful here. Colonel Bogojevich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. From the State Patrol's perspective, I think, clear decorum rules and then consistency across committee hearings allows us just to give a clearer direction to those troopers that are coming into those rooms. And as you know, during the session, we bring additional troopers into the Capitol who are not here year-round. So just making it consistent is easier for us to give clear direction.
Other sergeants for the House or Senate?
I guess the comment I would make is in the Capitol building itself, Jen, you mentioned what the decorum for the building, for the Capitol is. At any given time, there's multiple things going on. And so you could have a hearing in this room that has absolutely nothing to do with an event that's been permitted in the Great Hall or the Rotunda or the upper steps or the mall or all together. And so sorting some of that out from time to time can be a bit of a challenge because it's disruptive, especially if something is in the Rotunda and there's a committee hearing going on in room 15. And I work and have worked for many years with Plant Management Facilities Division, trying to read the tea leaves of when legislative deadlines might be and what spring, Easter, Passover holidays may exist and how that might all dovetail, attempting to give a couple of weeks prior to what might be the first deadline. So there can be that non-music, non-raucous event in the Rotunda, if you will. About that time, one of the University of Minnesota or Duluth will win a hockey championship, and there has to be a pep fest in the Rotunda while there's a committee meeting. And so there are guidelines, which, you know, that they're just guidelines. I think we've done a pretty good job with that couple of weeks prior to a deadline. It is kind of like throwing a dart, you know, to make sure that that works. But there's a lot going on in this building. And so to discuss the decorum of this building, it's a big topic because lots of people doing lots of different things in various wings. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Keith.
No, I would agree with you. The only comment I would have is to have a decorum memo like this in place just gives us guidance because we like to go with the guidance of the chair. And so we know that fine line between if something's happening that might cross a statute that where the state patrol would get involved. But to have something in place for us to follow and we go by the chair. So something like this would definitely be helpful.
Anything additional? Senator Westland.
I think we have a challenge developing decorum for the Capitol because it is a different space. This is the people's house. This is where people come to rally, to protest, to make their ideas known. I think there are some common things that you can't be threatening to people and that you can't do anyway. But I think that that's a challenge for this building to come up with something. I think the courts are a little bit different space and serve a different purpose. And so I think that we may struggle a little bit for the Capitol building itself in terms of broad, detailed decorum, and it may be just more expectations of, you know, you're going to not be threatening or harassing to people, you're not going to stalk people, again, things that are already not allowed to do. But I think it's challenging in this building.
Absolutely. And can I just ask a question, and I maybe I should know this, but when individuals are asking for a permit for an event, in that communication, is there expectations and rules sort of for behavior depending on where it is that they're located? Ms. Suki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, when people reserve the space, they are provided all of the rules and regulations that are associated with that space, and they sign off and agree to follow those rules as part of the application process.
Even post hockey championships?
That is correct.
Okay, just for clarification. And I think that's right. I think, you know, I don't want to bring us down or go down a rabbit hole that we don't need to go down. But I do think, we're in a time when temperatures can certainly get high very quickly, and just also opportunities to remind everyone who is part of this community in this building, be it the public or staff or members, just the responsibility that we all have to make sure that we are good stewards of this building and of this place and space. So just getting back to the committee language specifically, I don't anticipate that today specific language, but I do think there is clearly a need for more specific guidance and for both bodies to bring that forward to your respective memberships as well, and that we can have sort of broad recommendations that could be included in the report. Any additional questions, comments, snide remarks on this particular piece? Okay, all right. Well, we will continue to move forward here, and I think the sort of the broad pieces on committee decorum, this paragraph, I think is a really good place to start. If members have additional recommendations or things that you'd like to be included, we can bring those forward at an upcoming meeting. And the suggested committee security procedure and protocol, there's additional pieces. We've taken notes that we can include those as well. All right. So moving along to this next section here, we want to talk a little bit about safety drills. And so the next provision before the committee is the proposed capital safety drills language. Members should also have the text in front of them in their binders. Committee advisors, can you speak to the provision and how it may impact your work and the work of your organization? And so I'd open this up to either the Sergeant at Arms or to the State Patrol to speak to this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For those of you who may not have a copy of this, I'll read the capital safety
Thank you.
drill sheet. The Advisory Committee on Capital Area Security recommends that the House and Senate adopt rules specifying the types and regularity of trauma-informed safety drills and training for all elected members and staff. In creating these requirements, the committee recommends the bodies require participation in these trainings for all tenants, staff, and legislators. My comment on that would be I'd like to see the word tenant go away. We have staff and we have public and legislators, but tenant is a word that doesn't really fit well around here. We do training on a regular basis. Matter of fact, this week has been populated with a number of them. The one thing that is always missing are the vast numbers of public, because to do a training, to do an exercise when this building is populated just would be very cumbersome. And so the patrol, and we've talked forever and ever about as we go about these trainings, whatever they be, fire drills, active threat, the one thing that's missing are the dozens and potentially hundreds of people who are here that day when things go sideways. And so we're well aware of that, but we have numbers of these over the course of a period of time. I will just point out, because I've been doing this a long time, required participation of anything around here is also a difficult thing to achieve. Mm-hmm. So you're close with this, but.
I appreciate that. And noted on the tenants language. And I guess I will also include potentially just talking about the constitutional officers and their staff. I know that it would be welcome for the governor's office and our team here as well of staff to be clear on safety protocols and drills if, God forbid, anything like that occurred. Any additional reflection? Yeah, absolutely. Jen, please go right ahead.
Thank you. A question for those that authored this was there a reason that it focused on the House and Senate respectively versus the buildings? And looking at maybe the 4 buildings that were involved in the assessment. We are tenants of the Capitol, and so I think we would like to be at least surprised and aware of what the plans and exercises are. And we do get copies of the plans, but don't also often participate in the exercises and also do them for MJC. But I think just recognizing that it is often about the building and all of the people in the building versus just specific groups of people.
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent point. And I would ask what safety drills look like for the judicial branch?
Oh, yes. We, like many of the buildings on the complex, do the fire, the evacuation drill and the shelter-in-place drills, but we also partner with Capitol Security to do active threat drills in the building as well, scenario-based drills. So,
Excellent. Thank you.
thank you.
Could I ask an additional question, which is what does participation look like in those particular drills?
Maybe you could describe the one we just did about, what's it, a month ago?
Active threat, yeah. So the active threat that one was done on a sign-up basis because there was a classroom, a presentation portion before we moved into the scenario-based. And so we limit the number because of the scenarios and moving people through them. As far as the evacuation and shelter-in-place drills, that they're announced, obviously, but it's really those that are in the building that day. So no mandatory participation. Thank you.
Senator Westland.
And to the point about, I mean, maybe this just needs to say that all of the capital area buildings have to do the drills, and that way it covers everyone. And I agree with our Sergeant at Arms that getting people to participate is often challenging, and members will send their staff to things, and the members and we sit and we get information, but I do think there is something valuable to actually the process of physically where, okay, this is happening, what do I do? Because I can get your verbal instructions and written on paper, but I learn by doing, which I think is true for most people. I also know that those things can also be triggering and traumatizing. And yet I think I would feel better to actually go through a process of here, I'm in this building, this is what's happening, this is where I need to go, and this is what I need to do. I don't have time to be reading things in the moment of a crisis. And so I do think that there is value in doing this, both the fire drills and evacuation drills, but also the mass incident active drills, I think would be super helpful. Layered on top of, we're going to give a safety presentation, come in, we're going to give you information, but having the ability to actually go through the process of saying, I'm here, what do I do? And to do that in different locations. We're on the Senate floor, what do we do? In the House, what do we do? So I think those are really valuable. And I think we should make it required and mandatory attendance, knowing that some people won't do it. And that's a leadership problem above my pay grade.
Heard. Representative Mueller, did you have anything that you want to add here?
You know, I'll just add too, I think this language of having rules specifying the types of safety drills could encompass what Senator Westland was talking about. And just to reiterate that talking to members in the House, having those scenario-based trainings is something that members are actively seeking. And I agree, it is hard to get members to come to some of these things, and to the extent they can be held when we're here, we have plenty of notice. I know sometimes some of these trainings you don't want to give notice because you want to see how, fire drills and things like that. But I think to the extent that members have that kind of notice and it's a day when we're actually in the building as opposed to during the interim and people are working other jobs and having to drive great distances to be here, we're much more likely to get people here.
An additional question that I have as well, maybe it's for Mr. Peace, which is as the Historical Society is conducting tours through the building, and you know that upwards of 40,000 children are coming to their capital every year. What does that look like? Do you do scenario planning for, God forbid, you have a group of third graders with you, and what that would look like? Could you speak to that?
Yes, Madam Chair. We, with all of our staff, we do training about evacuation, and we have in our training manuals, in our information desk book, we have the Capital Security Emergency Evacuation Plans. And so that's something we do with new staff, but also routinely remind people. Today was a good day to remind people because we had the alarm or the rehearsal here today. So that's what we do. And basically the rule is if you have a group of students or anybody on a tour, you just head to the nearest exit. And then we usually have a collection point out by the Knut Nelson statue, and that's kind of where we try to get people to radio to us where they're at any given moment as the evacuation has to happen. So, yep.
Thank you. That's incredibly helpful. So what I am, and Representative Nash, I want to make sure that if you want to weigh in here, that you have an opportunity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to point out, as others have, that getting anybody to do anything prescriptively at the Capitol is a tall order. And being in my caucus's leadership, I will tell you that it's virtually impossible to make that happen. So it's certainly aspirational, and we can always try, but good luck.
Well, I think, that is heard, and folks with election certificates, can certainly do what it is that they would like to do, but also know that our job, right, is to advise and to give as much advice as possible. And this feels like an area where there's lots of opportunity, not just for the safety of members and staff, but also for the public. I might encourage us then for this particular piece of language here around drills, if we're going to update the language, and we can bring it forward at an upcoming meeting, but that we talk about capital area safety drills as to include additional buildings on the Capitol grounds. I think the 4 buildings specifically that have been assessed by the Axtell Group is a really good place for us to start. I appreciate the removal of the word tenant and to be more specific about who we are talking about here with regards to the judicial branch, along with the constitutional officers as well. Anything else that we would want to include here? Yeah, Senator.
I'm sure this is part of the broader topic, but I think when we're talking about something that just went through my mind is when we're talking about sort of these mass incident or these safety drills, I think part of the planning that we have to do is how are we accounting for people? Like that's part of the drill. Where do you go? And when you go there, how are we accounting for and making sure that we've accounted for everybody, which can be challenging depending on where you are. But I think that's an important part of this because God forbid there's an active shooter, for example. There's going to be a lot of chaos, and there needs to be a manner in which we are able to figure out who was present, where people are, accounting for where they are. That's going to assist law enforcement that's coming in trying to figure out who they're still looking for, who may be missing, who may be injured. And again, I know that this is probably the overall part of the safety planning and recommendations itself, but I thought about this in terms of they have a meeting place. Mm-hmm. They have a place where they go and they meet and they count noses, and I'm sure make sure every kid's there that's supposed to be there. And so I think that when we're planning for these sorts of events for each of the buildings, there has to be a mechanism to figure out just just like you would a list of passengers on an airplane, right? And a manifest, being able to figure out who we're looking for and where we're supposed to meet to account for each other.
I think that's correct. And I have a question, and maybe this is for the State Patrol or Colonel Bogojevich, or potentially the Sergeant at Arms. Just as we're thinking through that space, I think about being a recovering House member and how it really would be determined based on where I am seated on the floor as to like which exit I would head to. And so when we're talking about those drills or that training, do you get into sort of the details of that as asking people, is it to locate the nearest exit potentially, or as folks are thinking through what that might look like for them, how do folks get that instruction? Colonel.
Madam Chair, I can answer briefly, again, without Captain Roski here, who really does the majority of the training on the grounds. I am guessing that he does talk about exiting. If you choose to exit, there's different routes you can take, whether you hide or stay in place, whether you leave the room, where you would exit, and then those meeting points are really important.
Mm-hmm. So just making sure that that guidance is included. And I think this is the piece, Senator, that you were also speaking to, which is if there are some folks who are participating or some folks who are not participating, or if there's some folks who are sending staff in lieu of members getting this training themselves, that can make for chaos during a particular incident. So I would just encourage us to include language that would recommend that as much as we possibly can, knowing that everyone has their own prerogative, but encouraging members as well as constitutional officers and their staff to participate in that directly as much as possible. Anything else here? And I would encourage us to talk to both the clerk of the House and of the Senate, who spend a tremendous amount of time monitoring these areas, and their staff as well, who are there consistently as we are putting additional language together. I'm just making a note of that just to make sure that we're communicating directly with both of you as well. Anything else? Okay. Chief Justice, anything else that you'd like to see here? Okay, great. All right, well, thank you very much. We will move on to the next piece here, which is just an update from the Department of Public Safety. And so, Colonel Bogojevich, can you please begin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we discussed at the last meeting, the number of threats that have gone up current year to date, we are at 58, and that's not the total number of threats that have come in. That's the number that have elevated to an assessment where we work with the BCA to decide whether or not we're going to formally investigate. With that, we have hired our full-time threat investigator, so she will be making her transition down to the BCA to start building that team so we can specifically move those to her to start investigating. Ella, I believe, is handing out the threat matrix that goes along with that to give some guidance if you should receive a threat and how to go about that, who you should contact, whether or not you're in your residence or if you're on the Capitol grounds, receiving those threats again, and then those will be directed through the Sergeant at Arms to that threat investigator or to local law enforcement. An update on our Capitol Security Officer hiring. We've talked about the number of vacancies, 20-plus vacancies we had to fill those. We did have 140 applicants for those. However, after backgrounds, we were only able to hire 16 of those vacancies. So they will be starting here within the next couple of weeks to, again, start to fill some of the vacancies that we're seeing. We'll also be adding 3 additional sworn troopers starting in the beginning of December down here. We're working through the key card restriction, the hour of operations, putting the key cards to sleep, the communications. That is, again, in the early stages right now. We're working through that communications plan for all of the tenants on the Capitol grounds. We have provided virtual training to all of our troopers across the state about coming to the Capitol and the expectations of the Capitol. Again, we've talked about bringing in additional troopers during the session, and then also our mobile response and our SRT teams that come in when needed. So we've provided training to them. Captain Roski has provided training within the last month, both drill and training, so fire drills, and then the active shooter training, or response, I should say, training. And then the Major and Lieutenant Colonel have continued their on-site visits to different capitals throughout the nation. I know there is some confusion from the NCL coming in and speaking to their work. We really are going to those capitals from an operational standpoint to find out how they are conducting business.
Any questions for the Colonel? Colonel, I would just say thank you so much for the update. I think the additional support with regards to threats that are coming in, placing that individual at the BCA is very encouraging to me. And this matrix is fantastic. This is something I think especially when there are traumatic things that happen or people get these threats, you're not always thinking the most clearly. So having this available is incredibly helpful. I would just ask how should this be distributed potentially to members or to constitutional officers?
Madam Chair, I believe that the leaders have been given a copy of this for distribution, and we'll ensure that we start getting it to the judicial and to the tenants on the Capitol grounds.
Great, thank you. And this is just a good reminder, I think, at the beginning of session to walk folks through this. This is very helpful. Thank you. All right. Any additional questions? Okay. Thank you, Colonel Bogojevich. Appreciated. For the next agenda item, we'll just give the Senate and House Sergeant at Arms an opportunity to provide any relevant updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The matrix will be emailed from my office to members and staff.
Great.
In the very near future. We have conducted trainings this week as recently as today with the evacuation of this building. Captain Roski did a wonderful job with the training on Wednesday. We had over 700 people invited. And he did a very thorough going over of active threat. And so we have a lot of initiatives in the works, but I have no other public updates at this time.
Thank you.
From the House, not much to report since the last meeting. We continue to do our trainings. Temporary session hires are ongoing. And as far as training goes, we have started training different departments. Most recently, the Chief Clerk's Office met with their group. We toured their spaces, talked about exits and strategies and stuff like that. So that is ongoing. That's it from the House.
Excellent. Okay. Any questions? Okay, thanks for keeping us safe. Okay. Next piece here, we'll now transition to our public comment period, which is an opportunity for members of this committee to hear from the public. Before we get to testimony, I'll lay out a few guidelines. Before you begin your testimony, please state your name for the record, and then please keep your testimony to 2 minutes. Staff will be keeping time, and I'll notify you when your 2 minutes have concluded. Please adhere to these limits, or you may be cut off. The time limits are provided so we can keep this meeting on time and hear from as many folks as possible. I also wanted to make sure that the testifiers keep their remarks to this committee's purview. All testimony related to Capitol area security is welcome. However, we will not entertain testimony on off-subject matters. If your testimony veers off subject, I will respectfully ask you to bring your remarks back to Capitol Complex security. So with that, we can begin public testimony. We had one testifier sign up in advance to testify, and that is Rick Heller. Rick Heller, you can can please come forward to the desk.
At the discretion of the chair, may I stand during this meeting?
Yes, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. And then at discretion of the chair would indicate if the 2 minutes are up and not to include my introduction.
You have 2 minutes for your full testimony and introduction.
So I understand that that means including my introduction. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Rick Heller. I'm the official representative twice exceptional undefined in Minnesota Statute 120B15. Also defined in voting law 203B 29 subdivision 2. The minutes are not correct. They can't even say that in the minutes. I ask that you correct the minutes. So here I am to speak today. Ms. York, I think, is here today. I had asked earlier, I spoke at the last meeting on the 26th or 7th of October that I would be bringing that. I did send it. I don't see it posted online. I'd ask that it be posted online for, not just for yourself, for the public. Because as you create your protocol and rules here, it's likely going to get into decorum is going to relate to that. And it's important that standards matter, just like digital accessibility. The legislature passed those standards called Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1, October 15th last year. It's very important that digital accessibility, security, and transparency are tied together. And I'm the fifth part of the chair. You got 4 parts. You got the House, you got the Senate here, you got the governor's office. Okay? The public. This is the public side. It's important. Anyhow, my suggestions is what I said. I do have more information to share. I got 30 seconds, it said. Anyways, and I appreciate that I could have a face-to-face conversation. And then with the 2-minute limit, it's very, very narrow. It's the minimum. So I'm going to ask for an extension. And if I don't get the extension, you'll cut me off, so that's fine. But there are other things I would like to address. 10 seconds. And hopefully somebody will reach out to me, sit down with me, be a scribe, and take some of these notes and the importance of my experience at the Capitol. Thank you again for testifying. I'm open to any questions. Ms. York is welcome to come up and speak about her letter ahead of time. Maybe at the next meeting. That's up to her. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. That is the end of our list of people who have signed up in advance to testify. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to testify? Okay, thank you to our testifier. That concludes our public comment period. So we will move forward with the additional feedback that we have for both of the agenda items with regards to safety drills and committee decorum moving forward, and we'll bring those back to the members to review. And I wanted to make sure that I noted that our next meeting will be held after the Axtel report is released so that we can walk through and discuss provisions and recommendations that could be included in our final ACAST report as recommendations from our committee to the legislature. I also want to just speak to the point that we have figured out in this committee how to ensure that folks from different branches of government and different political parties can work together in a way that is respectful, civil, and I would hope that this can serve as a model for the rest of this upcoming legislative session and beyond, but also as a model for this country as how we treat each other and ensure that the language that we use is taking the temperature down, can show that we can disagree, but not result in threats. So I just wanted to say thank you to this committee, its members and advisors for modeling what civil discourse can look like So thank you for that. Hope everyone has a safe and happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you again soon after the Axtel report is released. Thank you so much. We are adjourned.